Up, guys? TKC here. Don't mind the Yu-Gi-Oh shirt. I don't know why I'm wearing it right now, but I am. I sure hope Kaijudo makes t-shirts, or some other company makes Kaijudo t-shirts at some point. If not, I may have to make one myself just for fun. But anyways, back to the main point of this video. New preview cards from Evo Fury. There's quite a handful, so I'm going to be talking about them right now. The first card I'm going to be talking about was previewed by Roar of the Kaijudo on Twitter, and it's called Reap and Swo. This card is awesome. Really, really awesome. Nature Draw. Holy moly. So this is Reap and Swo's effect. You look at the top two cards of your deck, choose one of them to put into your mana, and then take the other card and put it into your hand. If you think about it, this card is kind of like a way better Eureka Charger, in a way. Eureka Charger in the old game was basically a charger card, which meant that after you played the card, it went straight to your mana. So it is kind of like the same thing, but better. Because first of all, it's giving nature, decent card draw, which didn't really happen in the old game. I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to balance the civilizations out a lot better than they did in the old game. Light had almost everything going for them. They had Magris and stuff, and they had so many different effects from many civilizations just put into Light. So Light had a lot of weird advantages. So what they're doing instead is that since nature was kind of weak for the longevity of the old Duel Masters game, they decided, okay, how about we remove draw from Light and at least give this decent draw to nature so that they have more of a chance. I just love that you can actually have the choice to look at the top two cards of your deck and then choose which one you want to put in your mana and one to add to your hand. And then Eureka Charger ends up being the mana card. It's like, oh, I don't need this card right now, let's put it in mana, and let's add this awesome card to my hand to use next turn or something. This actually allows decks such as Hyperspeed Dragon decks to not have to use water to work well. They could just use Breach the Veil, Reap and Swo, maybe even the Great Arena as well, and the deck would work just fine. They don't have to resort to adding water in just for the card draw or search or bounce or whatever else you need from water. I really like the design of this card. This card is absolutely excellent. And the funniest thing about this card is that it's only a common. Now, knowing Wizards of the Coast, if I had to guess, I think this card would be the short printed common of the set. I'm not really sure, but I remember when I opened my dojo box, there were a few cards in each rarity that did not appear as much in packs as the other cards. So for me, anyways, Ghost Spy and Blinder Beetle were the cards that ended up pulling less than the other cards. It was a clear difference. Commons, in that one box, I had way more than play sets of each card. I'm talking about 7 to 10 of one card that's common, for example, like Spectre Claw. But Blinder Beetle, it was only 4 or 5, I think, in my box. And Ghost Spy, I only got 3 in my box, and I've heard people who have got less than that in their box. So I think if I had to think of a card in Evo Fury that would end up having the same kind of effect, it would probably be Reap and Swo, because this card is really, really good. This is just a guess, who knows, maybe they won't be short printed or whatever, but it could potentially be a recurring pattern. I'm just speculating here, but who knows. Reap and Swo, awesome stuff. Next we have a pair of cards that are a part of a cycle. A cycle is basically a set of cards that, have similar effects in a set. For example, in last set, in base set, we had a cycle of cards that gave power to a certain race, like Raging Goliant and Finbar and Palladio and etc. Now we're going to be having the same thing in Evo Fury, and it's going to be supporting Mono Civilization decks. So these cards basically get better effects if you have only one civilization in your mana zone. So right now we only know the nature and fire card in this cycle, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about those right now. So I'm going to be talking about the fire card first, and that is Drakon Warchief. So Drakon Warchief, as you can guess, is a Drakon card, and it is a level 4 3000 power creature. But when you only have Fire Civilization cards in your mana, it gets the Heart of Fire ability, where it gets Fast Attack and Powerful Attack 2000. This card basically turns into a Gill of Flame that stays on the field, which is pretty cool. I like to think of this card as basically a mix between Draglide and Gill of Flame. It's right in the middle. Draglide is just a standard fast attack 2000. Gilaflame is a fast attack 5000, but it ends up going back to your hand. And this card is basically in the middle because it's a 3000 by default, but then it goes up to 5000 when it attacks, and it has fast attack if you have Fire Civilization cards only in your mana zone. I think Mono Fire Rush can definitely be a thing. I don't want to say that Mono Fire Rush is going to be a really, really good deck now because of this, but it definitely supports it quite a lot, and I could definitely see it having play in a Mono Fire Rush deck. And now onto the nature card, and that is Silver Fist. So Silver Fist got quite a makeover here. I don't know, Silver Fist was just a Pyro Trooper in the original game for nature, but now we have this Mono Civilization Cycle card. So it's a level 5, 4000 power Beastkin, and it has the ability Heart of Nature. While all cards in your mana zone are nature cards, this creature gets 4000 power and Double Breaker. So this is basically a permanent Splinter Claw Wasp. It has no powerful attack at all, so it's literally just a level 5, 8000 Double Breaker. Mono Nature, I mean, that could possibly be a thing. I mean, even in the Dojo set, we got Chief Many Tribes, which where you have 2 other creatures that are nature, you get to ramp 1 and it only costs 2. So Mono Nature was already kind of a thing, but this kind of helps it out quite a bit, you know. Silver Fist is this ginormous Double Breaker for only 5 mana, if you only have nature cards, of course. So, I mean, Mono Nature Beastkin deck could potentially work. Who knows? Especially if there's a Beastkin Evo, whether it be Fighter Dual Fang or, God knows, Barkwhip the Smasher. That would be ridiculous. Beastkin, Mono Nature Beastkin can definitely be a thing. I would not be surprised at all. So we only know those 2 cards of the cycle, but that doesn't mean that we could predict what the other 3 cards are. And here are my guesses. Well, so far we already know that we have Beastkin and Drakon, and those were the same races in the previous cycle with the 2000 power boosting cards. So, if I had to guess, they'd be the same races for this one as well. So light will probably be a Storm Patrol, that when you only have light, it gets a certain amount of power and blocker. That's what I'm going to have to guess. And Skirmisher, of course. Or, on the other hand, it could also be a blocker with Skirmisher, and then it loses the blocker, no, and then it loses the Skirmisher effect, and it can attack freely at shields. For water, it's obviously going to be Cyberlords, and if I had to guess, this was probably a hard one. I don't think it would get like a draw effect, but I think if I had to guess, it'd probably be this card can't be blocked. I'm not really sure. Cyberlords don't really tend to be aggressive, but ever since they printed Finbar, who knows anymore? So if I had to guess, it'd be like a level 4 or less card that can't be blocked, but has a lot of power, like a kind of like a Bat Breath Scaradorable maybe, that can't be blocked, period. But it could be attacked, of course. And lastly, for darkness, it will be a worm. I mean, that sounds kind of weird, but worms definitely need more support. They really are not doing well right now, so if anything, hopefully this worm helps out. But then again, it is only mono darkness, so you're still forced on doing that. So it's probably going to be a worm that gets Slayer or something. That's my guess. Like, it gets maybe, I don't know if it gets power or anything, but it'll definitely get Slayer as an addition or something. Who knows? Those are my guesses anyway. I don't know. I mean, so far with the cards we got, they're pretty much effects that match the civilization pretty well. You know, fire with fast attack and nature with double breaker, since they tend to be really aggressive. So those are just my guesses, but leave in your guesses in the comments if you have any better ideas.